Well, today's episode, we're going to review AEW Rampage and NXT Level Up. But also, we got the doubleheader by New Japan Pro Wrestling Rumble on 44th Street, where we have, of course, a couple of championship matches. And, of course, we see a Stardom match taking place in there, which is the first time we see it here on in New Japan ring here in the US. And a lot of things took place. But also, we got some news updates. Definitely, we're going to be sharing what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling. So, get ready for another episode of the Lead It Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome, everybody, to the Lead It Wrestle Zone. All things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So, let's begin with AEW Rampage. It opened up with a AEW World Title Eliminator match. Now, keep in mind, this is not for the title. The Eliminator match is a fact if the opponent who's facing the champion, they get an opportunity for the title, and the person who ended up doing that is none other than the loudmouth himself. Uh, what's his name? Daddy Magic Matt Menard. So he faces John Moxley. Of course, you probably can guess. He talks that he's going to beat him up. Of course, he had Parker by his side as always. But you cannot, uh, how do I say, outclass John Moxley because he lives for lines. But the one thing that was interesting is how this match ended. I did not anticipate that somehow that Moxley had what's his name, Menard, right where he wanted him, when he overshifted them to a chokehold, which was an amazing moment. I think that was pretty well. However, that sleeving little weasel, Stokely Hathaway, showed up along with Lee Moriarty in the, of course, a post match. Saying, trying to, gloat about how they beat him up and all this other stuff. But however, it appears that Stokely Hathaway is asking for an opportunity. So this could be another eliminator match that we could be seeing. However, Moxley did say that Lee Moriarty made the biggest mistake of his life siding with Stokely Hathaway. And of course, Stokely does not like that, but who blames him because he's he's causing nothing but trouble. Now we do get a very interesting video package now, as you know, for almost a week or two ago. Jade Cargill TBS title was stolen by Nyla Rose, proclaiming herself to be the TBS champion, and she's been demanding that belt to be back. No matter what, she tried every possible way, but it seems it's not. So she's asking to bring that belt back, or she'll get an ass kicking. Next up, let's just call this one a squash match. It was Keith Lee versus Serpentico. This one went real quick with a power bomb. But however, during the post match, when of course um, the Acclaim comes out, not doing their usual rap, apparently something transpired. Billy Gunn was nowhere to be found. Apparently, Tony Schiavone indicated that there was a family emergency, but they didn't buy that. However, it turned out that Swerve Strickland went into a dark horror film way, kidnapped um, uh, Billy Gunn. Nobody knows where, and apparently he used like some sort of pliers onto the hands of Billy Ass. No one knows where he was, but the obvious question is this: what does Keith Lee mix of this? Like, surely he did not know what was going on, but does he need to consider the fact that his partner just went up the cuckoo's nest? Who knows? But I think that tells the story. Okay, they may have their issues, but right now he's seeing a darker side of him. So we'll be following that soon enough. Next match we have, of course, is Ty Mello along with her husband Sammy taking on Madison Rain. Now, keep in mind these two have been at each other's throats before. As you know, Ty Mello saying that the sports entertainers are way more better than professional wrestlers, and it was a pretty good match. But unfortunately, Madison Rain ended up on the TKO. 1, 2, 3. It was over. Now, during an interview with Ethan Page feels that MJF was like they're saying we made you number one contender. The idea what they wanted for him is to give him the opportunity. Okay, we'll beat up Moxley. You become champion. That's how it works. But I think there's like certain things I feel like with MJF, and I'll explain that on the podcast on Wednesday because I feel like there's more to it. Like I feel like what the story is telling. So basically, Ethan looks more like he is making a play for the AEW World Title. He announced that at Full Gear he'll be part of the Eliminator match. I would presume he would have wanted the All Atlantic title, but looks like he's aiming a little bit more higher than we expected. But yeah. Now our main event, we have the TNT Championship. Matt Taven has a challenger versus our champion Warlow. Man, that match was great. But of course, we know how is it going to end with the Powerbomb Symphony. And of course, what's his name? Mike Bennett showed up and attacked Warlow, but excuse me, Samoa Joe showed up, give him the helping hand. But that's not end there. We see Powerhouse Hobbs, who we haven't seen since All Out, reappeared. He reappeared, we don't know what, and then all of a sudden, sneak behind Joe. They were attacked by the embassy. Yeah, you got that slithering little weasel. Prince Nana shows up too, giving them a beatdown. So it looks more like each person got what they want to get. Brian Cage is after the ROH World Television title, while Powerhouse Hobbs is after the TNT title. So we're gonna have two big men challenging for these titles. So that's gonna be a classic film. I mean, classic match between them. So we'll see what happens next week with that. And I think that's pretty much it right now with AEW. I believe it's time to NXT Level Up. Okay, so who levels up on this episode of NXT Level Up? So let's find out. Our first match, we have Shannon Stacks Lorenzo along with Tony D'Angelo taking on Tank Ledger. You may have seen him previously. I might have talked about it last week. I thought this match was pretty well, but of course, a lot of questions were being asked about okay, uh, what was the purpose of him putting me in with Shinsuke Nakamura? So he thought maybe he you know, could impress Tony D. But I have to say, Shannon Stacks was able to impress in this match, knowing that he's challenging a much bigger individual, a much powerhouse of individual. But it was pretty good. But however, it was a running lariat by Stacks that sealed the deal for him to win the match. Now, as you know, what happened in Halloween Havoc, we saw Mello did not regain the North American title. But the obvious question is, how will Trick Williams do without him? As you know, he's always by his side. He always stands next to him. But now it seems that Trick Williams is going solo. So he feels that he has nothing to worry about. But the obvious question is, can he handle it? That we don't know, but we'll find out in our main event. Now, our next match, we have Thea Hale versus Jakara Jackson, a new girl in WWE, who now in the NXT group. I thought this match tells a very interesting story with Thea Hale, as you know, recently with the arrival of Duke Hudson and rolling into Chase U. I thought it was a very interesting story how they're saying. Now, people can say they don't trust Duke Hudson, but it seems like Duke Hudson is trying to make an effort to enjoy himself. He was able to encourage the hell, to stay strong. You cannot give up. That sort of attitude. And she did, and she pulled off a face first onto Jakara. 1, 2, 3, it was done. So I'm kind of curious how where they're gonna go with this with Duke Hudson as part of Chase U. Now our main event: Trick Williams versus Brooks Jensen. As I said before, how will Trick Williams do without Mello? As you know, Mello has not been the same since not able to regain the North American title. He tries to eliminate the competition, but however, Trick Williams has to go on his own. But the obvious thing is, can he do it without Mello? That's something that you need to understand. But Mello, I mean, Williams did do a pretty good job. But however, you got a guy like Brooke Jensen who loves the fight, and that's how it works. But it was, of course, a famouser onto by Jensen onto Williams that sealed the deal with the W. So I thought it was a pretty good episode of NXT Level Up. So I think that's pretty much it. So let's move on with New Japan Pro Wrestling Rumble on 44th Street. Okay, New Japan Pro Wrestling Rumble on 44th Street. Normally we don't do the kickoff show, but we have to because I'm a fan of these girls, mostly Cosmic Angels, Mina, and Waka. But this was a special moment for Waka, so let's put it out there. So they face against Tiara James and Kylie Ray. Now, if you guys know Waka's history, she was born in New York. She got the sort of like a home field advantage. And what surprised me about this, everybody supports Waka, even if Kylie Ray was there. We all know that. So it kind of the shift changed it because of Waka, and people are rooting for her to get her first win, and I think that's pretty cool. And I thought the match was pretty good. It was very, very decent. I think it was a a kickoff show. Um, However, I think we all expected that Waka was going to be the one getting pinned or something because that's always been the case. But Kylie pulled off the TKO, allowing her to win. But of course, you hear boo. Nobody liked that, so they wanted to see Waka win. So yeah. Now let's get to our opening match. We got the House of Torture, Sho and Yujiro, taking on Chaos members Yo and Rocky Romero. Now, keep in mind, Rocky has no love lost for what Sho did, betraying Yo a couple months ago. This is tells us a story that they're trying to pull off, but once again, Sho brought in, of course, the wrench and used that on Yo and basically allowing them to win on Rocky. But however, Yo was pissed off how this match was ended, so he was getting a beatdown. But one thing led to another. The lights turned off. Nobody knows what was going on. And to the surprise, it was Leo Rush who makes his return to New Japan. Nobody knows why. He gave a good beating, but he did something I did not expect. 3K with Sho taking out Yo. So basically, it looks more like there's an alliance. But during the post match comments, it did show that Yo has an idea. He shared it with Rocky and he told him that, Leo Rush is going to be my tag team partner at the Super Junior Tag League. And I'm like, holy cow, that is going to be awesome. Now, some people are already talking about, is this like a new version of Roppongi 3K? I don't know, but if it is, let's just call it Roppongi 3K 2.0 or something. I'm sure they'll figure that out, but no big deal. Next match, we have the strong open weight tag team titles in a three-way match. We have the LA Dojo Young Lions, DKC Kevin Knight versus Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin of the Motor City Machine Guns, and of course the champions Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis versus Aussie Open. Now this is one of those matches that there's a lot of things can go wrong. Now Aussie Open initially doesn't need to be pinned in this match. That shows us that is a factor that Aussie Open have to consider, and it did. So you probably would have assumed, okay, DKC and Kevin Knight would have won it, but no, it was the dirty bomb that was made by Shelley and Sabin onto DKC that sealed the deal and to become the new NJPW Strong Openweight Champions. I think nobody expected that. People were like shocked, including Aussie Open. They cannot believe that. But there is no doubt in my mind that Aussie Open will demand for a rematch since they were not the ones that got pinned in that match. So that could play it out pretty well. Now, we had a surprise visit from the android, Alex Coughlin, who still has some unfinished business with Kratos. As you know, he and Kratos have been going at it each other for a while, since um, Coughlin was the one who pinned him during his graduation. But, however, it looks more like Coughlin has other plans. His plans? He's going to appear at World Tag League. Now, that is huge news. But who's his tag partner? I think that's a question we definitely need to get to when that day comes. So I think that's pretty good. Now, our next match, relates to the strong openweight title. We have the Foundation, the best pure wrestler in the world, Jonathan Gresham versus Fred Rosser. Now, Gresham did stated that Rosser needs to outclass him, try to outsmart him, which, of course, he could do, but we've seen what Gresham can do. Don't let the size fool you. That's something we always say. Don't let a guy who's short, but we know his capabilities as a wrestler, stands out. And I think that's one of the things that I like about this match. You probably would expect it that this match was going to be full of submissions made by Gresham, and I think that says it out. But we do know that, of course, Rosser has the power in him to do it. So he pulled off the Sidewinder slam onto Gresham and retained the strong openweight title. Now, they did make a big announcement. Battle in the Valley will be making his way back to San Jose on February the 18th. So if you guys are from the Bay Area, then you guys know where it is. If you guys are close to the Bay Area, you know where to go. So that's pretty much what they announced. Next match, we have Team Filthy, Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs, aka the West Coast Wrecking Crew, along with their Fielders leader, Tom Lawler, to take on Homicide, Wheeler Yuta, and Shooter, Shota Umino. I thought this match was great. Now, the X factor in this, you have Team Filthy. They already are an established team. But how will Homicide, Yuta, and Shooter will coexist? That's the test right there. But of course, some people can say they have a strong connection. Like, of course, Homicide knows Moxley, and Moxley, of course, is teams with Wheeler Yuta, and of course, Umino was the one who was under Mox's wing back when he was still a young lion in Japan. So that plays out pretty well. But I think to everybody's surprise, it was Shota Umino with the Death Rider onto Royce Isaacs to pick up a huge win. I thought that was pretty great. Now, our next match, we have the King, Minoru Suzuki, taking on the Wild Rhino, Clark Connors, who we haven't seen for quite some time. And he appeared with someone we all know in both wrestling and MMA. We're talking about the most dangerous man himself, Impact Hall of Fame, Ken Shamrock. So, yes, he showed up in his corner. I thought this match was great. Like, a lot of pound for pound, a lot of beating. But it was, of course, Suzuki with the Gotch style power driver that sealed the deal for him to win the match. And, of course, signs of respect between both Shamrock and Suzuki, who know each other from the Pancreas days. And I thought it was pretty interesting how that played out. Now, the match that many people have been expecting, we have the CWA title start a match here with Kylan King, who we all know is a prominent wrestler. We've seen her what she can do in AEW, NWA, and other locations, taking on the icon of Stardom, the ace of Stardom, Mayu Iwatani. This is a huge test for her, as you know. The CWA title, if you guys know this or not, it can only be defended with foreign wrestlers. Now, keep in mind, since the world shut down because of the pandemic, no foreign wrestlers were ever had it. However, the person during that time who had this belt was none other than Sudi, and Sudi was able to defend it in Japan. But people, if you guys say, but isn't Sudi Japanese? Actually, she is half Japanese and half Filipino. So basically, that connection fits it well. So that shows it. So I have to say this is one of the biggest matches for Mayu Iwatani, even outside of Japan, representing Stardom. But it was the moonsault that allowed her to seal the deal to win the match. Next up is the KOP title in a street fight between El Fantasmo and Shingo Takagi. Now, these two have been punking each other for a long time, so this is a street fight to whatever. But man, this match they took it to the limit no matter what. They tried each other's moves, they tried their own moves, nothing. But it was the CR4 that Shingo Takagi got El Fantasmo once and for all. So he used one of his moves against him, and that sealed it for him. So he wins this match. Next up, we got Bullet Club, Juice Robinson and Jay White taking on Eddie Kingston and the Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada. Now, you probably would have assumed home field advantage, Eddie Kingston, since this is his hometown. It would have been great. I think I love the match how it was going. However, Bullet Club tried to play the smart game in order to keep Eddie Kingston, not to tag Okada. But sooner or later, Kingston had to get to that in order to pull it off, and he did. So he pulled off the match. But however, the referee didn't see it. Jay White low blow Kingston, and then he put off the Blade Runner, once again giving his little propaganda saying that he is the true king of New York. But some people will beg to differ on that. So we'll see what happens then. As you know, Okada will be facing Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom, and Jay White is confident enough to believe he will retain that title for good. So I think that's pretty much it. So let's do some news updates. Okay, news updates. First things first. Congratulations to WWE superstar Sheamus on getting married with his newly bride Isabel. If you guys have been hearing, that's the reason he was proclaimed that he was injured, so he can focus on his wedding. It was told that Drew McIntyre was the best man, and of course, current AEW star Miro is, of course, one of the groomsmen. And I thought it was a pretty good ceremony, so congratulations, Sheamus and Isabel. And I think let's move on to the next thing. Now, West Coast Pro Wrestling has announced for the debut of Alex Price, the an East Coast wrestler who I mentioned on GCW and JCW. He'll be debuting with the promotion on January 6th. I think this is going to be a good thing for him. Now, speaking of GCW, they just announced for a match for their November 20th event in Providence, Rhode Island, Aura. Nick Wayne will be challenging none other than Alex Price. That is the most interesting thing. Now, developments, as you know, I mentioned Mina Shirakawa earlier in the episode on the New Japan segment. It just turns out there's a new leakage comes out. Mina is going to be in the big fight of her match for life November 3rd for the Wonder of Stardom title. It just revealed that Saya Kamitani has been taking up some jiu-jitsu classes in hopes to slow down Mina from ever winning the title. However, we all know that Mina had took kickboxing class. We know she has taken jiu-jitsu. But the obvious question is, will that work in her favor? That is the obvious question. I mean, I know Mina had long time doing jiu-jitsu before this. I don't know how could Kamitani actually pulled it off in a short time. So we just got to wait and see until we get to November 3rd because many fans are hoping that Mina does win the white belt. And I think that's pretty interesting to see since she's been improving on her wrestling craft. So I think that's pretty much it. So let's just call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode coming up. I'll be doing a short to review episode. Hopefully, if there's some news updates, I'll put it up. We have Choco Pro 265. The Agent Dream tag team titles will be on the line. There's plus 2 other matches, and then we cannot forget NWA USA. If there's anything else to add, I'll do that as well. But we'll just see from there, and then I'll do another video after that. That will features, of course, New Japan Strong, and if anything else, there's still some wrestling that I haven't seen, like um, Melbourne, ICW No Holds Barred in Melbourne. That's something I haven't done yet. Of course, Pro Wrestling Noah, a few others. So we'll see what happens then. So let's just end it right here. So I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.